Okay. So we'll just do the same as last week. If that's all right. Yeah, I think the only difference is Elliot. Do you want me to do the?
Do you want me to wear a face mask? You do the introductory stuff.
I'll do the official bit, but then you can do.
Can you still hear me if I talk like this?
Yeah.
You go.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just wear a face mask for the entire thing, and then I don't need a pop filter.
What face mask are you wearing? Is it like a coconut one?
No, is it it just says step ahead and it's black. It's black.
Oh, you mean you're like a COVID mask?
Yeah, what face mask did you think I meant?
Is it like a fucking Mike Myers mask or something?
Mikey, we're all on the same wavelength about face masks. We think he was just putting a ski mask on.
I thought you were putting on something normal, like a nice moisturising face mask.
The fuck?
Sunday night, innit? That's what you're doing.
Yeah, is that what you're doing on a Sunday? Yeah.
Sunday night
why did you grow up? Why did you grow up that you do that on a Sunday night? Oh, yes, just put a face mask on, sit down.
Not in Northern England you do that, son. It's forbidden.
If I don't want a face mask, me, I'd be fucking butted in head. Just for the principle of it.
Yeah, but your skin would be so soft.
Which you don't. What if you get butted in the head? You want it to be hard and tough.
You want to set the scene, Elliot? Shall we do another scene? Because everyone hated that last week.
Did everyone hate it?
Yeah,
because you're so bad at the lore, you don't know what you're talking about. Or you're like, yes, I'm Valdor and I am your brother. To Dawn, like, no.
Yeah.
That's not how. That is not how it works. The lore does not work that way. The lore is this sacred thing that we carry as like torchbearers of this story that's being told.
Like your virginity.
Say virginity. Say virginity again.
Virginity.
You said that slightly strange.
I'm glad you heard that as well. It was like slightly threatening, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Virginity.
Like virginity is a threat. Somehow we can make it into a threat.
It's because he's a Bloodraven player, so he's just projecting his insecurity about being a virgin onto everybody else.
It is true, because instead of going out to meet girls, I was playing Warhammer 40k games on the PC. But I just want to remind everyone that this is a lore podcast, and when people listen to learn something. After the first, we laughing at our own jokes, the podcast gets turned off, and then people remove it from their feed because it's more of a joke cast than a lore podcast. So we've got to be very serious and make sure people learn something.
Learn something about a fictional setting.
Yeah. So has anyone got like a random trivia fact that we can shove in the middle?
Like a completely random trivia fact or Warhammer related.
Like, what shoe size is Horus?
Big.
There we go. Has everyone learned something?
He doesn't really wear shoes, does he, in fairness?
I mean, he doesn't walk around barefoot.
No, but the armour's like all in one. You won't call it like shoes separate, would you? If you don't see like in the middle of a space marine scream, give me a second, I've got something inside my foot, and just take his fucking shoe off.
Have you not seen how many layers there are to that?
Yeah.
To that suit. We go into too much Space Marine detail, and we're teasing people about Space Marine episode in the future. I'm talking about the black carrot race.
Sorry for the spoiler that Space Marines don't really wear shoes.
Yeah, where like if I was going to equip it on an RPG, it'd be like level 9 black traitorous Greaves, wouldn't it, or something?
What? Mikey, not everything is Dark Souls. You can't compare everything in your life to Dark Souls.
Everything is Dark Souls. Everything is Dark Souls, sorry.
You know, when you put your first deposit down on a house, is that like when you get to the bonfire?
Yeah.
No!
It's like spending all your souls to go level, that's what it is. That you saved up and you've lost loads of times, but then you've saved it up again. And then you buy yourself a level. That's the same as buying a house.
So what you're saying is,
when you get your car written off, it's like saving up 30 health potions for the final boss, and then you go back and the quick save's gone. Just all gone, fam.
Just
real
like
life as well.
Souls.
Real life experiences being talked about in here.
So shall we act out a scene from something in Warhammer?
Yeah, even after all that stalling, I haven't been able.
Straight true
to think of a scene. It is really hard when we don't have a bat rep. And there not just sort of like, here you go, these two factions. This is fireworks.
Well, it's the great. Yeah, I did. What are they celebrating? It's
Fuck knows. It's just fireworks going off.
October.
It's just fireworks going off near me.
What's going on?
I live in China near a plant, a gunpowder plant. I don't know if they have them in China. A gunpowder plant. All they do is make gunpowder all day.
A gunpowder plant in China in the 16th century.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to fend off the Mongol horde. Right, the Mongol horde. Mikey, you are going to be Jagatai Khan.
Right. Okay.
I will be. I'm going to be Mortarion because all I'm going to do is cough through it all.
Yeah,
that's good. And then Alex, who would you like to be? I'll give you a choice. I'll give you two characters now. We've got Jagatai, and we've got Morty, the Pale King.
I could be Magnus because he was friends with Jagatai, wasn't
he? He was.
And Morty didn't like him.
Should I just be bitching at you both then? Right.
Can I be Mortarion? Because that's the easier role.
No.
I want to be Mortarion.
I can't trust you with...
this is my podcast now. I want to be Mortarion.
You can't be trusted with anything except...
So you give me probably the main character in this.
You get the one with the accent because, as you just pointed out, it's your podcast and you'll know where the line is. Yeah, you have to be the one that risks it. So, yeah, thank you. I will be Mortarion. You will be Jagatai Khan. The Great Khan. And
the Great Khan.
There we go. And we're cancelled. And Alex is going to be the mighty Red King. Red King? What's his name? Magnus the Red? The Red King. You're going to be the Red King. Well, he's not about the Red
Crimson King, isn't it?
The Crimson King, that was it. The Red King.
Which always reminds me of... the Crimson Chin of Fairly Odd Parents. The Crimson King.
I'm here to save the day, Emperor. No, Magnus, what have you done? We're going to get onto that shortly anyway. But yeah, okay. So
we've got the characters.
We're in the Council in IKEA, which we'll learn about a little bit later.
IKEA,
the Council of IKEA. There is lots of things being talked about. Whether you should really include all of the tools in the box or whether that just adds to packaging in this day and age. Most people have tools. But most importantly on the agenda is the topic of whether we should be psychic. You know, whether psychic and like magic tricks and stuff, like being able to pull coins from behind people's ears, whether that sort of stuff should be allowed in the Adeptus Astartes, which is the Space Marine Legions.
Right, okay.
So... all on stage because it didn't happen like this, but this is how we're doing it because we're taking dramatic license.
Yeah, because obviously
I will open. Are you ready?
Okay.
Went inside my mouth then. My name is Mortarion, and I'm very angry about my upbringing, and you should stop doing magic, because I hated magic when I was a baby, and my dad, who was a real bastard, he invited a magician to my 5th birthday party, and when he got his cards out, all he did was poison me! Now I have to breathe through a mask, so we shouldn't do magic anymore, thank you. I rest my case.
I will accept that Mortarion raised some very valid points there about his dad being a bastard and magic cards poisoning him, but we shouldn't rule out magic, or as a more educated man would call it, psychic powers, because it improves the Imperium, and Mortarion is just being salty because his upbringing was quite, well, awful.
Well, I see his body into the moonlight, even if I try to cancel.
He's doing his typical riddles again because he's on the wind. So I will have to decipher that for you because he's speaking Chagorian, which, as we all know, is a language of nobody fucking understands it, despite the fact that everybody speaks Gothic. So the translation is, Mortarion, you a skank-ass bitch. Get over it. We need psychers.
All the pictures into my eyes. Don't you see my condition?
Brother, what do you say makes no sense.
Brother Mortarian, the fiction is going to run it again. Can't you see now illusions right into your mind?
I think Jagati's quoting emo song lyrics from circa M2 by the sound of what he's saying.
He is a student of
Crossover.
Deja vu. I've just been in this place before.
Right, end scene. End scene. What is this bullshit? What is this?
I mean, I was just reading his lines. I'm pretty sure that's what he said at that time in this particular scene.
He probably did just say that. Or what I like to imagine he does is because they always call him like the Warhawk. I like to imagine him as just like a hawk. You know, just like twitching his head round and blinking inappropriately. And everyone being like, Jagatai. And he sees the mirror and he's like flying at it, attacking it.
I like how you're seeing the hawks blink inappropriately.
Well, for a human. Inappropriate for a human.
Watching. And then as soon as like something gets out of hand, like, I don't know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, shut up, Mikey. Yeah. That's your contribution. He's just like, I don't know.
I don't know. Like Mortarian pulls out a tasty snack, and then Jagatai Khan just comes in, swoops it out of his fingers, and then
that's why they hate each other. Flies over in his jet bike doing barrel rolls and just snaps it out of his hand.
You know how
Mortarian's like, I never get to eat a yogurt that's my own.
Would you want a yogurt from his home planet?
I mean, Marty probably don't have a problem with it because your own filth's your own filth, and he's like,
true. Oh, and you wanted a random trivia fact?
Oh, yes, always random trivia fact.
For the people who don't like humour, the Jagati Khan was actually not at Nagia. He sent one of his Stormcasters in his stead.
Stormcast?
Yeah, but we can't say his name. It's like Yesugai or something. I can't say that. So.
Stormseers, sorry.
I can only read it.
Stormseers, sorry.
Into the moonlight, even if they try to cancel? What do you mean?
If we're in person, I would strangle you.
Hey guys, and welcome back to LoreHams. Definitely not affiliated with LoreHammer, which is another podcast that someone pointed out to me. But this is LoreHams, where we tell you all about the lore in a very digestible way. I'm joined by the lovely Elliot. Hi, Elliot.
Hello, that is me. That is my name that you've just used.
That is your name,
Mr. Having a good evening. I don't know how to introduce yourself on podcast. It's weird, isn't it? Because it's like...
Yeah, you just say hello, that's it.
Hello. I don't...
And today we're joined by the lovely guest, Alex, once again.
Thank you. Yes, I am here.
This is part 2 of our pilot episode, because part 1, which was supposed to be 30 minutes, ended up being over an hour, and we needed a part 2, so here it is.
It's okay. We're going to be task-driven today. It's going to be a task-based environment. I'm going to be dishing out points. So when people do like a succinct explanation, that's a word of the week. So let's see how many heresy points. That's the flavour of points today. How many heresy points you can get before the end of the episode.
Okay. And I just want to say, this is just a pilot. Next week, or I don't know, sometime in the future, probably not next week, the next episode, or what we will call episode 1, will be on a topic of your choosing, which you can vote for in the Hellstorm Wargaming Premium community group that can be found on Facebook. All links to that in the description. But otherwise, Elliot, would you want to tell us what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, so last week we just basically set the scene with what is 40k, and we did that in a very roundabout way, and it was likely more confusing than just going online and reading about yourself. But why would you want to do that when we can describe it to you? So we're going to carry on with the story today. We sort of talked about what is happening in 40k and why that's happening, and we alluded to a few events in the history of the universe, sort of like a timeline. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a very, very, very quick and very brief breakdown of like the events leading from like where we are in time now, 2020, all the way through to Big E being sat on the throne in like a very bad way, needing some WD-40. And then we can speculate about what the future is maybe at the end.
So where would you like to start?
Yeah,
2021.
it should probably start at the
After
start.
the great catalysm of 2020, the world was left in a ruinous place.
I mean, I think because of the events that we're living right now, 40k they could probably, that's a little bit of an exaggeration now. They could probably move it down to just like Warhammer 4k, and I reckon we'll be there by like the 4th century.
You reckon?
I think so.
Well, technically, we're in it now, aren't we? Technically.
Yeah.
Technically.
Actually, I think you'll find.
Every time we say technically, it just makes you sound like an arsehole.
No, well, thank you. Would you like to crawl back up your own?
No offense, but technically.
Well, in the timeline, I think is it like from Millennium 1 to like 15? The name of it eludes me at the moment, but that's before. So there's
is it BC, BE, before Emperor?
Before Emperor, I don't like that. So
I just see it called prehistory in a lot of the timelines. I just tend to call
after that,
prehistory, and then the Chrono Strife, and then all sorts of other things. So,
because there's your ancient history, then there's your M1, when there's like, and then till M15. So like M1 to M15 is like the Age of Terror, which is where we are now. You know, like the first, steps into space, or man goes to moon, eventually colonizes the solar system, eventually, sends people to colonize outside the solar system, but it takes that long without warp travel. It takes years. That's why they end up having Imperial Knights and STCs, because
I've got it. Got it. The Age of Terror and the Stellar Exodus is from M1. So this is what we're in now, all the way, as Alex just said, until like the 15th millennium.
And then it's like humanity's golden age, the Dark Age technology, which is only called the Dark Age because they don't know anything about it, but it's actually a golden age in terms of humanity.
Yeah, I was going to say, they called it the golden age of technology, didn't they? Or that's what it was thought to be when they were living through it.
Living in it, yeah, because they had machines that could cure any illness. They had the STCs to colonize any planet. Humanity were getting on well with a lot of aliens because either beat them up and made them behave, or actually got on well with them legitimately.
We had AI was massively through the roof. We had a series of AI constructs that moved, like the stone. Was it the Men of Stone, the Men of
Men of Iron, Men of Stone?
Yeah,
Men of Gold.
Men of Gold. Big theories about the Men of Gold.
Dark Age mankind was like nothing to mess about with because they had ships that could literally like rip holes in space and time. And they could shoot you from back. They could shoot you and hit you in the past or the future. They were like really mad technology, like insane.
Pretty legit.
Yeah.
Imagine just going about your day and they're getting a laser gun at your bum. That'd be pretty terrible, wouldn't it? just look at your watch and be like, oh, that must have been from 5 years from now or something.
You can imagine the guy that's invented that gun just be like, the shower trauma that you have when you're in the shower and you sat there and you're thinking about that, like one argument you had 3 years ago. You think this would have been the perfect comeback. That guy definitely made the gun, and I was like, right, here now, in this time, that woman that was smart about my name in Starbucks, bop.
She'll never spell her name wrong again.
I mean, it's probably like, I don't know. It's probably not called Starbucks at that point, or Galaxy Books or something, because they've gone flying, haven't they?
Yeah. Starbucks still an appropriate name though, because it's in the stars, isn't it?
Mikey, did you just upgrade a star to Mars? Do you have any idea what an upgrade is? Terrible. Yeah. Are you a star? Do you want to be a little cold ball of rock instead? That could be arranged.
I was going to say it's going to be some random letters that don't make any sense, and then it's going to mean something else. Because don't forget, the time of the first millennium 1 to like millennium 15 is the time of us discovering. So this is the time of Musk,
the Age of Terror, and the Stellar Exodus. It's going to be Elon Musk. Yeah, he's going to be like, listen here. Well, he's not, because he's got that weird South African voice.
Listen here.
Elon Musk, if you ever hear this, because this is going to be digital now and on the internet, I love you. Please don't kill me with your time-traveling bot gun later on.
You're cancelled 10 years in the future, but now.
He's going to send his Men of Gold on SpaceX little jet bikes to come and kill us. No, not that important. Right.
But what are you going to say about him?
He's a wonderful guy, but he's definitely precipitating our launch into the stars. And I mean, in the Warhammer universe, that's what the Emperor does. So you don't have to take, you don't have to go too far with your mental gymnastics before you arrive at Elon Musk being the Emperor. It's a credible theory. Yeah, we start with the rise of man. So everything up until this point, everything up until where we are now, is the same in the Warhammer universe.
Yeah.
Our history right now is what their history is, whether that's decided upon or not. And it's only because we're so far in the future in the 40k universe that doesn't matter. The stuff that we're arguing about now, like Trump and COVID and all these things that are like current affairs, mean nothing in the 40k universe because the scale of what's going on is just so much different.
Yeah, and very little remains of things that are like really important now. Like there's hints in the Horus Heresy books of various things being remembered. Like there's occasional Shakespeare things that have been remembered that far in the future, which is very impressive if that actually happened in real life. But for the most part, it's like nobody gives a damn about these ancient societies anymore, apart from maybe the Emperor and a few crack job historians.
Yeah, it's just like the scale of their struggles is just inconsequential.
Yeah,
compared to what's going on in the 40k universe at present, if that even makes sense. Like in the future, I don't know. I don't know what the correct temporal state is. Is it now? Is it happening now? Do we say that Warhammer's happening in the future? It's happening now, I think. I always think of it as like, what's happening now in the story? Where's the story at now? If that makes sense.
As an interesting aside, all the Chaos Gods except Sinesh are already born by this point. The first one who comes into existence, but not sentience first, is Nurgle. The first one to gain sentience, because like the Black Death starts to bring Nurgle around, the first one to gain sentience is Khorne, which is due to the wars of like Genghis Khan and things like that. Then Nurgle pops up, but not too long afterwards, and then Siege comes, around the Renaissance era, and then they have to wait a very long time.
And empire building and all of that sort of thing came out.
When is Slanesh born? Is that when the Eldar are born?
Yeah, so Slanesh has to wait all the way. So they're all born in like M1. And Slanesh has to wait all the way to M30. So it's 2,900,000 billion years. Well, obviously not 29,000 years to wait. And then he turns up, living his best life.
Having a great time.
So much of a good thing is when he turns up.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's his shtick.
Which, conveniently enough, the Dark Age technology ends around M25, 26-ish, when human psychers start to appear on more worlds. And the interesting thing here is the worlds that are more civilized and progressive are like, yeah, we should look into this. This is really interesting and cool. And obviously the backwater worlds are like witches, burn them, murder them, etc. Now, the backwater worlds survive because they murder the psychers or, burn them, etc. The progressive worlds are nice to psychers, but a lot of them, the psychers, being untrained, bless them, they've got no ideas what their powers are. Demons tend to open their nice brains and use as a little portal to enter the world and start to kill everyone around them, which is obviously bad for the world at large. At the same time, a lot of the Men of Iron rebel. So humanity gets a really bad time at this point, and that starts the Age of Strife.
Age of Strife. The Men of Iron were essentially, they were constructs built. So there's a few different constructs, isn't there? There's the Men of Stone, which I think are heavily hinted at being used for like infrastructure and almost being like forerunners to the Men of Iron. And then the Men of Iron had a massive role in military. They basically made it like so that warfare was automated, so that people could be like, let's have a war, and it was almost like Warhammer, where you just like throw all these things that no one's actually dying. It's just like all these models of these robots that go and fight in each other. And they would be decided that way. I'm sure there'd be a lot of killing once your stocks of robots have run out. And then at some point, they were just like, we don't want to be slaves anymore. You get classic Terminator situation, and then humanity has like a massive scrap for its life. With not only the fact that all of these, what they thought were like the new X-Men, all these people who are like, oh, by the way, we suddenly developed, we've all evolved into being psychic beings, and everyone's like, okay, that's not very cool. We might keep that on the DL. And then just as they're trying to keep that on the DL, all the Men of Iron show up and go, listen, bro.
Yeah.
We would really like equal pay. None of us have been able to afford a house in a while. And it all kicks off.
The interesting thing with the Men of Iron is it's hinted at the fluff, both that it's due to obviously the classic Terminator syndrome of, wherever we deserve rights, humankind's a threat, but also it's hinted that maybe possibly chaos corrupted the AI, so which is also an interesting way to look at it, but it's obviously not really fleshed out as much yet.
Sounds like a Warhammer propaganda thing, like Imperium, like, do you remember that? That wasn't humans being greedy, that was chaos as well. Everything bad that's ever happened.
Chaos is human.
Like, you all know about chaos now. That cat's out of the bag. So everything that's ever happened, it was chaos. It was like, okay, yeah, that tracks. That's fine.
The Age of Strife is like basically humanity's empire collapses, and every world sort of fends for itself, or a few worlds near to each other will fend to themselves. But in the most part, and this is where you get, like Elliot said, psychers go a bit crazy. Demons invade worlds, aliens invade worlds and take humankind to be slave. Even Saturn in our solar system, aliens take over there and enslave people. Terror itself, because there's no food coming into it, loads of people starve, and you get loads of various warlords that start to arise.
Max, don't you? On terror at this time.
Nuclear bombs are launched everywhere. People launch viruses, chemical weapons. There's WMDs everywhere. The universe is in flames, and the humankind cannot talk to each other because there's massive warp storms, which is caused mainly because the Eldar are busy having a massive party.
Yeah, so you get the birth of Slaanesh, which is making space really awful to travel through. And not only do they use space for the communication, but also just being able to transport things and moves around. So you get these little pockets, these little like enclaves of humanity that are trying to outlast this. Basically, well, it goes for like 5,000 years, doesn't it? And you do get pockets. I mean, this is what we're going to talk about in a second when we get on to like the unification and the Great Crusade. But you do still have pockets that are going really well. I think Macragge was a good. Was it Macragge, or there was some systems anyway where they basically still maintained little stellar empires.
Yeah, Macragge were talking to his neighbours still, his close neighbours. Took a lot longer, obviously, because there were no real warp travel and such, but they still kept in touch and traded.
And it's important that in this time as well, as we're moving on now to the Age of Strife, we've got what's going on in Terror. We've got all these warlords that are forming, and I think this is where the Emperor first really starts showing his hand, isn't it? Yeah. As an open force, because all of the Emperor and his little buddies, the Perpetuals, who are like immortal humans, they've all been doing a little bit of posturing through the human history anyway.
Yeah,
they're like heavily hinting at being behind some infamous events, etc.
Yeah,
and then I think the Emperor basically realizes like enough is enough, and he chooses that as his time. Like, the Earth's knackered. I'm going to try and unify the Earth now. Yeah,
obviously being an incredibly powerful psychic being there he is, he sort of knows that this new god's on the way, and he almost, if he doesn't, he perfectly times it that when this god is born, that he's just taking control of Earth and is ready to go out on a massive crusade because the warp storms have gone, which could be a perfect coincidence, or the Emperor is just playing just as planned, which I like to believe he's doing.
So what we're saying is, it's just before the Age of Strife, when the Emperor was like bitch slapping some other warlords to prove that he's the best one, there are lots of pockets of humanity all across the galaxy that were trying to survive, but every time they tried to venture out too far, they couldn't get to each other because there was too much blackjack and hookers going on.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it's like classic human problems. So just everyone runs out of resources. Everyone has big wars for resources. Yeah. So there's a few worlds where they find, like, I remember in the spoilers for the Gulliman origin book, that was in the Black Library series, but there's like, they land on a world to fight the orcs, and they get into these like old human cities, and they realize that they all nuked each other, all the humans. Like, they thought they were there's like, through the book, you don't really know what happened to the humans, and then as you go through, you realize that actually they just all kind of had a big war with each other, and it paints this picture of the galaxy just ripping itself apart, almost similar to how we have this. It's like the Mad Max tale, but just times over the galaxy instead of just the Earth. Everyone's sort of gone into this post-apocalyptic world of where are the resources, and I need to hoard them. I need control over them.
There are a few success stories, but they're few and far between. Most worlds either descend into full-blown Mad Max, where there's gangs who control the world, like Horus's planet that he lands on.
Like the small board gang?
You would just hate to just throw advertisement in at certain junctures, isn't there?
Thanks, Bob,
I've heard a word that I can mark it as Hellstorm. Quick.
Yeah, they created lots of holes in the ground, like craters, like our new objectives that can be found at Hellstorm.
all the creators from all the WMDs that were dropped. You can buy them at Hellstorm.
One of the like my favourite little fluff pieces from when the Great Crusade is one of the planets. The humans have all died, but the robots that was there are still doing the jobs, waiting for the humans to come back.
I thought that was going to be it then. One of my favourite stories.
All the humans died. The end.
They're all just dead. Good story, Alex. Good chat.
It was either that or we were waiting for another advertisement, but Alex let us know.
They
all died. Now to stop you dying, what?
Keep yourself in a healthy state of mind. Why don't you subscribe to Hellstormwargaming.co.uk for funny content?
They all diced. Like you could buy dice on the shop.
Oh.
Sorry, I'll start now. So what happened after that anyway? So we've got you mentioned the Age of Strife, like Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, so the Age of Strife, and then sometimes this is the Age of Strife is like it happens at the same time as the fall of the Eldar, like we said before. And the Age of Strife is just as we said, it's the collapse of humanity through the galaxy as the warp storms take over.
M30 is where it all starts to just, chef's kiss.
Gets a bit spicy, and that's where I would say that the story of Warhammer really starts.
Yeah, because the first thing that really happens is, like we've said, the Eldar fall, Slanesh is born, and the Eye of Terror bursts into being. The side effect of this is that the warp storms across the rest of the galaxy calm, so you can finally get out and about again. You can go out, as Mickey Flanagan
said. So they start playing backtrack and getting all the hunters out.
So the Eye of Terror, for people who may not know, is basically like when Slanesh was born, when she was spat, or who knows, only Slanesh knows how they identify, when they were spat out into the world, they've basically left like a giant, the vagina that they came out of is basically just left in space as a huge...
It is a huge gaping wound.
It's just it is just a huge wound in real space that goes into the warp.
Nice. The centre of the Eldar Empire. It's literally based at the centre of the Eldar Empire used to be, and it's just spawned out of there.
So,
at the same time all this is happening, the Emperor unifies Earth under his rule. Right. He takes it all under his rule at the same time. This is happening.
So he's finished slapping all over the warlords and says, "No, actually, it's mine."
So, like Nathan Doom and things like that, he goes round and he beats them up.
Look at me, I'm the captain now.
Yeah, look at me. I am the Emperor now. And he reveals himself publicly, and that's Unification Wars. He has his Thunder Warriors, who are like the Proto Space Marines. They go out, they have blackjack and hookers, as Mikey says. They murder most of Earth. Some people join him willingly, obviously. He's quite a charismatic guy. Some people join him because they realise it's futile to oppose like a demigod. And then he unifies Earth. As soon as he's unified Earth, he sets off to Luna and he sets off to Mars so he can finally start his Imperium properly. And this is all at the beginning of M30.
So they define the fact that Elon Musk is the Emperor.
It could have been one of the Emperor's previous guys. It's only Elon Musk could confirm that for us. And next week, we have Elon Musk.
Just send him a spicy meme and he'll come on.
Yeah, he might do. He's quite partial to spicy memes.
So, you've alluded to Thunder Warriors being the predecessors of Space Marines, but we've kind of touched on what Space Marines are, but what are Thunder Warriors? Because this is something I've got an idea of that I think I know, but I don't think I actually do. You know that thing that you kind of hear about, you're like, oh yeah, I know all about that, and then actually you've got no actual idea. What's a Thunder Warrior? Tell me, one of you.
You've played a Game Boy, right?
I've played a Game Boy,
You've played a Game Boy, and let's say like we've got... a Game Boy Color or a Game Boy Advance, a pretty good piece of kit.
You've got to decide. You can't have Game Boy Color or Advance; they're like completely different.
Game Boy Advance, okay.
All right, okay.
Advanced
Game Boy.
We're gonna go. Oh my god! it's Codex Sega Blood Raven player over here. So we've got a nice piece of equipment. It does the job. Do you want to conquer the galaxy with it? Not really. Wheel in the Nintendo Switch that is the Space Marines. It has improved functionality. Is unlikely to go into a psychotic rage and just murder everything around it after when it reaches the end of its lifespan, which I think was the main issue with the Thunder Warriors. I don't actually know, so I'm hoping Alex is going
to... They were less stable in terms of the enhancements. They were stronger than Space Marines, though, physically. They were stronger and tougher than Space Marines were.
They were like unrefined, just like pure brute force. Whereas like the space, I think they were like someone compared them as like a mallet compared to the Space Marine scalpel.
Yeah,
right. Space Marines, you can insert them, a squad of them, and they'll just reap untold carnage because they're so like they're just the ultimate war machine. Whereas the Thunder Warriors were like a very blunt instrument for they were just basically there to conquer Earth.
Mm-hmm.
All they needed to do was wipe religion out.
So a Thunder Warrior is a super soldier, basically, cladding in some Iron Man type armor that doesn't heal itself.
Yeah, so they had similar armor to the Legions. If you were to look at them, they just kind of look like 1980s again Mad Max versions of Space Marine armor. There tends to be sunglasses. Like mohawks and stuff going on in the back. Yeah, sunglasses. There's a bit of a
sunglasses and top knots. That's about it.
A lot of spikes and stuff. But they were essentially like the early Space Marines. So big 8-foot sort of super warrior. Oh,
the main problem with them was that they weren't genetically as stable as Space Marines, so they couldn't be counted on to live as long because their minds or their bodies would give out.
Yeah,
and the technology didn't exist yet to give them a longer lifespan. It made them to like kill all the barbarian warlords on Earth, and they were fantastic for that. But they wouldn't have been good enough to go on the star-spanning campaign that he wanted to do.
And it's important to note as well that the Emperor, I mean, he was a warlord and he was brutal and sort of ruthless, really, in his conquest of Earth. But he didn't conquer all of the people, I don't think. Some of the kingdoms, some of the empires, I believe he brought over with diplomacy. Like there was a lot of he was trying to build an empire.
Joined him with diplomacy.
That's meant to be, it's like heavily alluded to be Northern Europe and England and that sort of area, isn't it?
Yeah. One of the things about one of the things that's been revealed in the fluff as well, about the custodies, it's not the custodies, sorry, because the custodies are immune to chaos, is that the Thunder Warriors, when they were fighting one of the barbarian warlords, I think it was the Confederacy of Maul and Sen, something like that, they were exposed to warp energy, so the custodies were fine, because they're from the Emperor himself, but the Thunder Warriors, they were strengthened by it, but they lost control, and just butchered everyone in the way, including non-combatants, and even people the Emperor would have preferred, to have not murdered. So that was like a serious concern for the Emperor. Because even though it turned out later that a lot of Space Marines would turn to chaos, they didn't turn to chaos like willy-nilly, they chose to, rather than just being exposed to it and losing their mind.
Yeah, it wasn't just like, haha, trick gotcha.
Yeah.
You're now a chaosy boy. There was like big schemes going on with lots of psychology at play and all sorts of forces that are too unhuman for us to be able to comprehend, which is a really good scapegoat for GW sometimes. I love the idea of being like, we can't describe the warp to you because human minds can't comprehend it.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, GW. That does wonders for my imagination. I'm just imagining like loads of pictures of Lorgar doing the dance. Do you know was it Ricardo, the guy's name?
Yes.
Where he's doing the dance. I just imagine thousands of Lorgars doing that at you, and you're just like, crying. Look at his physique!
No.
Who's Lorgar? Before that, though, I will say that the custodies in my metaphor, my extended metaphor for gaming systems, the custodies would be like a top of the range PC. They've got like an RTX 3080 in there. It's
they actually managed to get one on pre-order.
Yeah, if you actually got one. And that's the thing, because they're very, very rare. So there's loads of Space Marines. Mm-hmm. He makes loads of them, the Emperor. He like falls asleep with his hand on the Space Marine making button. Whereas the Custodians are like, they're not like factory made like Space Marines are. Space Marines is a pretty like it's still an impressive technological feat to make a Space Marine. Don't get me wrong, but they're like mass produced. Whereas Custodians are like each individual works of art. They're all like custom built.
Yeah.
Right. So a Space Marine is like a gaming computer from Argos, and a Custodian is like a custom build.
Alienware. It's like an Alienware bespoke mess. It's like the PewDiePie Alienware Special Edition.
Yeah. All right, I get that. That makes sense. So it's got sick LEDs and shit.
Yeah, because
but an Argos PC is just a bit sad.
You don't want anything with. They're on the video as well. The Custodians. You don't have any of the
Ryzens.
Yeah, you don't have many Ryzens.
I've got a quick Thunder Warrior question before we move away from them too far.
Yeah.
So, Space Marines are usually made from scratch, but they can be made from a normal human, or they can be made from a dead Space Marine. But how are Thunder Warriors made?
Oh my god. Alex?
Yeah, so that was... so I can't answer this. What do you mean they can be made from a dead human? What you mean is with Space Marines, they're still children. They're all human children who are implanted with the extra genes. They're not like
he's just quoted himself so bad.
Yeah. But anyway, so Space Marines are made from kids.
I'm asking the valid questions here.
Indoctrinated with hypnotherapy and given the extra organs to make them to a Space Marine. The Thunder Warriors
made the same way.
are pretty much the same thing. So the genetically enhanced soldiers. So maybe not all children. It's not really gone into it, to my knowledge, but some might have been. But they were all. So, and they actually had Primarchs, but these Primarchs were not like the Emperor's 20 kids. They were just called Primarchs, and one of them was called I think it's Ushotan. I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but it's Ushotan. That's how it's actually spelled. And they were and they all had 20 legions. So obviously this is foreshadowing for the actual legions later on. And Ushotan was the Primarch of the 4th Legion, who specialised in seas warfare, which is obviously foreshadowing to big old Pert. And they all wore like simple armour. It were powered armour, but it didn't have like void. You couldn't go into space with it. It wasn't like void proof.
Yeah,
but they were they were just genetically engineered ones, and that's what I meant. I said they weren't stable later. They were genetically engineered, but they didn't have the genetically engineered lifespan. They could get cancers. They could get the brain just started to not work anymore, and the various reasons why the Thunder Warriors disappear or die. Some of them say that like the Emperor and the Custodians killed them, and then there's other ones who still stayed loyal. But one of them, in one of the Horus Heresy books, a group of them rescue a Custodes from some Alpha Legion operatives, but then he has to be killed by the Custode because he's lived too long, because they're constantly wanting their organs replaced, because they've got cancers, they're constantly, just basically rotting away. And if you're a superpowered human being, that must be one of the most awful things in the world. Because if you're a normal human being, that's bad. But if you're superpowered and you can literally see yourself be weaker, that must be horrifying.
To be given like godhood and then have it taken away from you afterwards, that must be very poor. But this is basically like in real history where Hitler had his time. I am calling the Emperor Hitler at the moment. Yeah, that is happening. Hitler joined in during the Spanish Civil War, and he had his test of the bombers, and they saw how Blitzkrieg was happening, and then he just took that into World War II. It was like his test, and I think that's what the Emperor did. The Emperor was basically practicing what he was going to do for the Great Crusade on Earth. He practiced his little legion system. He had like a very, very small, almost what you could say manageable version of this star empire that he was about to build. And then it went well. He managed to quickly press the delete button, killing all the Thunder Warriors off. And then he went forward with his legions. The legions didn't all have names at this point.
No, the first legion actually does wipe out a lot of the Thunder Warriors.
Yeah,
so the Thunder Warriors tried to overthrow the Emperor with the help of some politicians, as usual. No matter which period of Earth history you're in, there's always some politician trying to backstab you.
The Emperor was like, no, we're leaving all that in the past now. I am Daddy Emperor.
Yeah. And Constant Valdor and the first Legion show up and like, too late, lol, and just murder them. absolutely blitz them. The first
and then
Legion,
you have a series of sort of like conflicts through our solar system then. So you have, I believe they send, it's the Lunar Wolves, isn't it? And that's how they get that name, with some salamander help, I think, to take the moon back, for instance, because the moon is held by these like clans.
Yeah, these cults,
like
gene cults.
Clans. Yeah.
And they're basically run by women in the fluff, who like, and obviously they're known as mothers because they met loads of monsters and clones. And then they get the name. The Lunar Wolves get the name because when they're basically beating the shit out of them, he says, "Tell the Emperor to call off his wolves," and that's how they get the name.
Because he just set the legions on them. He was like, there you go. No, you don't want to play fair. We'll send this. Now, interestingly, I had a very different approach with Mars. We've not talked about what's happened with the solar system, really. I mean, we talked about Saturn before, but there are all of these little sort of like enclaves of humanity. You get a smaller scale of that in the solar system as well. So in Mars, you get like a fucked version of it, where they've become full on like cult of the machine. They worship technology now. They have this almighty. It's basically just Catholicism, because they have like a holy trinity of things of worship. They have the Omnissiah. What is it? The motive force and the machine spirit. So it's basically just like Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit. And essentially they worship technology, especially all this like world-bending technology we were talking about from earlier in the Elon Musk era, where they're like making time-traveling guns. They find stuff like that. It blows their mind, as it rightly should. And because they've lost the know-how to be able to build this technology, they're like, okay, the only explanation is that there is a magical space god who's making technology. And that's what they believe. Now, the Emperor is like diehard against religion, but when he gets to Mars, instead of being like, listen, I'm going to conquer you, fam, he realizes that that's probably not going to work and he needs these people on his side. So he breaks his cardinal rule.
He's only just made it as well.
Yeah, he's only just made this rule of being like, listen, let's not have any religion. And then he gets to Mars and he's like, by the way, your religion's pretty cool because it seems to worship me as a god. So we're gonna get that going.
We'll keep that.
I'm going to turn a blind eye to this because you've got Titans.
Super hypocritical later on.
Yeah.
But you make my spaceship. So...
Yeah, basically, it's much more convenient for him to ally with Mars. We've got colonies out in space, so they can't talk to at the minute, but they've got other colonies. It's much more convenient to ally with them and use their massive forges and their Titans. It must be noted for his expansion than it is to have a costly war with them. Especially when they seem rather keen to be on his side because they worship him.
The story of how the Emperor comes to Mars is really good in the book Mechanicum, where he just basically lands on Olympus Mons, and this knight comes to meet him. And knights in the Warhammer universe are sort of like these 14, 15-foot tractor machines that are like, they look like humans, the humanoid massive machines,
bipedal
basically.
Robots, aren't they?
Yeah, the huge bipedal robots that have weapon systems on them, and a little man will ride inside that, their knight pilot. And one of them basically goes to the top of this mountain to go and see what the fuss is about. And it's all broken, and the technology doesn't work properly. And as he comes up to it, the Emperor is just this like golden light on the hill. He touches the machine, and like the machine is just perfected. He's all healed. It has a full MOT. His insurance cost, his premium goes down for the year. It's just like a good time all round. And I think everybody on Mars, it doesn't escape them the fact that he's like slammed Luna with his Space Marine legions, and yet he's just turned up with like a subway platter for Mars. He really, really wanted them on side, and he needed them on side for what was to come next. As he gets his Space Marine legions, he's got his he doesn't have his Primarchs actually. We've skipped that part out. So when he made his Space Marine legions, we talked about these Primarchs before, and they're essentially like his template warriors. And he had that to a lesser effect with the Thunder Warriors, and then you have it with the Space Marine legions. He makes these Primarchs that are like immortal. They're basically demigods, for want of a better word. They're just insane generals, unparalleled in terms of like their mental and physical aspects, and they get yeeted out into the galaxy. And just instead of him bringing them up on Earth, they just get raised on separate planets, and that's how we end up with a very culturally different legions as we know them today. Obviously, the White Scars are like very Mongolian themed. The Blood Angels are like Greco-Romano. They've all got these different themes, and it kind of all comes from.
Yeeted out, Elliot.
So it's that. Well, that's.
We just send them on an escape pod.
Well, this is actually a bit. We can't. It's a bit of a spoiler because this is talked about in one of the very most recent books. But the theory that I knew, like growing up with Warhammer, is that they were cast out into the galaxy by chaos. That's what I thought.
Yeah, the Chaos Gods realise what the Emperor's doing.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is a threat, so they think we'll scatter them throughout the galaxy.
No, we are not allowing him to have 20 get out of jail free cards. We are just going to yeet them across the galaxy and he'll have to go and find them.
Spoiler alert.
I don't think we should. Well, spoilers for Saturnine if you were reading that, so you can skip ahead 30 seconds. But essentially, there was a woman who was involved, one of the other perpetuals. I think her name's Urda, or it might be Urdu. But she essentially is quoted as being like the mother of the Space Marines in the book. And she's heavily hinted at being, well, she's talking about it herself, about being involved with him, the Emperor, in the creation. And she calls the Space Marines and the Primates her sons. So it is like it's happening. It's all happening now. It's all happening now. It's big. We don't really know. So I thought that they were scattered by chaos because the Chaos Gods were like, none of your plans to have 20 demigods running around pacifying the galaxy.
Yeah, that's what I always thought. But it also didn't make sense. If they had the power to yeet them across the galaxy, why don't they just...
That was explained by the defences he had around it was strong enough to stop him killing Primarchs, but not strong enough to stop them yeeting it around. And then in one of the earlier Horus Heresy books, it basically had like a warp shenanigans because a Space Marine gets sent back in time through the warp to damage the seals so the Chaos Gods can scatter them. There's also the theory that the Chaos Gods obviously want some of the Primarchs on their side because they want a massive galaxy-spanning war.
And then most recently we have this theory about Urda. Yeah, because I think John Grammaticus says to her in the book, "Oh well, there's some talk of her scattering them anyway."
Yeah,
not sure because I'm only about halfway through the book, so I'm not sure.
I finished it.
More detail later on.
So in the fluff, there's two women who can be like known as like the mother of Space Marines and the Primax. So there's obviously very creatively. So obviously the Adeptus Astarte, aren't there? So there's Amara Astarte, who helps make the Space Marines. She helps stabilize them, so she's like the mother of the Space Marines. And then there is Urda, who is basically the Emperor says, I'm making the Primarchs, but I also need a woman, essentially, and she's a perpetual, so he comes to her. She is involved in helping make them.
It's a bit of a booty call, isn't it?
Booty call, but also involved in science.
Can you come over? No, I can't at the moment. But my parents are at home and I want to create 20 immortal sons to pacify the galaxy. I'll be right over.
So she comes over, does some science with him, and then there's 20 Primarchs.
Science.
It's science, bitch.
She realizes that he's going to use these 20 science projects to basically do Emperor things. She's not too keen on that because even though she's hinted to have always admired him, always thought he's one of the best of them, she also realizes that he's a bit of a megalomaniac. He only accepts his way of doing things. So she scatters them because she doesn't want her sons basically being tools, but as just weapons. So she scatters them. Then she goes to hide, and the Emperor is, to put it lightly, fucking furious. But because he likes her, he doesn't hunt her down, which she always thinks is strict, because she still lives on Earth. But the Emperor lets her live there rather than hunting her down, even though he's furious with her. So obviously, she must have been fantastic. Yeah, she must have been a fantastic booty call. But yeah, that's the new theory. That's the brand new, hot off the fresh presses this year.
Interesting. That's very different to what I would have thought.
So it's like mother's love instead of, it's a mother's love saving the children rather than the Chaos Gods going, magic.
Yeah, so basically, she she's using the kids as a weapon. So she takes them off her dad. And
we are certainly a Warhammer channel now, aren't we?
Yeah, Mikey, she's stopping the kids being used as a weapon.
No, not all women.
In a really bad way, because she's sending them to planets across the galaxy that she knows pretty war-torn, so what else were they going to become? But anyway,
yeah, we end up with, the Emperor ends up with these 20 legions who don't have daddies, and he does his famous speech, the stars are mankind's by right, and they march out on all these ships that Mars has made them, on their Mars Elegos, and they jet off into the stars. And then they start finding the Primarchs, and the rest is history. Then you go into the Great Crusade, which honestly, now I'm looking at how long we've recorded already, probably wants to be its own episode.
Probably, yeah. Well, you can give like a brief overview of what it is.
Yeah.
Brief overview. Go into space, see aliens, beat the shit out of them, meet other humans if they join, except if they don't, beat the shit out of them, make them join. It's fantastic, good time. Find the sons. Sons are cracking. Some are a bit weird, but he loves them all, but he loves one more than everybody else. Others get jealous, not very good. Empress to go on for a super secret project. You're my favourite son, you're in charge. Rest of sons either really supportive or complete cunts about it, as brothers usually are. Then other son gets corrupted because he's basically don't want to get retired, as Elliot showed last time, and Mikey said he don't want to be a dog queue. The rest is history.
Yes, that is the Horus Heresy and the Great Crusade.
Yeah, basically the Emperor was just like he got a game of Civ 6 running. He put the factions on as many as he could. He loaded in mods so he could have like millions of factions playing, and then turned all the rules off so you could only have domination victory, and just started the game. And everyone was like, "What are you doing?" And he loaded in with like 20 full armies.
Yeah, and
full of spaceships, and everyone's there with spearmen, like, no!
Yeah, and those
steamrolls everyone.
Those walking death robots you can get. That's his armies.
Oh yeah, the atomic death robots.
Yeah.
He's just got stacks of them, and everyone else is there with spearmen, like, please.
That's some of the weird
Can we at least keep our religion? Yeah. And he's like, that's the last thing you can keep. Planets from orbit.
The thing about the Great Crusade is you literally get things like that. So mankind turns up again, like, look at my space marines. Basically like the Old Spice advert. And he just turns up like, look at your spears, look back to me. Look at your spears, look back at me. Look, I've got a massive flaming sword with psychic power. So you can
I've got 2 tickets to a concert about the Imperial truth.
Which is really funny because there's like isolated pockets of the galaxy who followed the major world religions of the day. So you have obviously they've had name changes, like I think Catholics are called Catharic or something now, which obviously if you take into real world history of the Cathars is quite fucking hilarious. But from a horrible, morbid point of view. But like, and then the Emperor turns up and goes like, yeah, no religion. And they're like, but please, he's like, lol, no. And just kills them if they don't agree. Just straight up kills them. So these people for 10,000 years happily worshipping, like, Catholic, Muslims, Protestants, Hindus, wherever, like 10,000 years across the galaxy. They've seen real life demons, so they want some faith. And the Emperor's just like, fuck you do what you're told. Atheism for life. Murders everybody.
So that's basically what happens. He conquers the galaxy with his 20 armies, which are humongous.
But 2 of them disappear. Or do they?
The X-Files, you can make your own. 2 of them have been deleted, so you can be a Primarch if you want.
Yeah, so I know one of them was destroyed in the lore by another chapter, or another legion, sorry. So the Space Wolves killed one, right?
Not confirmed.
Whoa, you don't know that. What the fuck? You didn't even know Space Marines were made before,
hinted.
I know how Space Marines are made. It's like Spartan Project in Halo.
There's various hints. There's the hint that the Space Wolves, the Emperor's executioners, cost the bed to wipe another one out. The reasons for this given is one of them possibly fell to chaos before everybody else, or was at least wouldn't have joined the Emperor for whatever reasons. There's also a newer piece of fluff called the Rangang Xenocides, which is basically a Xenos race who was so powerful it took a lot of Space Marines to kill them off, and apparently they'd like wiped a legion out on their own. Right. But that's not been fluffed out fully yet.
Just hinted at.
But it's been like, there's a really cool bit in one of the books where all the Primarchs just want to see Crusade regarding the 2 missing brothers. And Horus is about to say something. He's like, but am I, like the meme, am I gonna? And then basically Malcador stands up and is like, shut the fuck up, and just mind stops him. It literally like chokes Horus out with his mind.
Right.
He will not let him speak about it because he promised he wouldn't, because the Emperor said not to. So Uncle Malk, not the real uncle, is your dad's mate, wearing the fucking dodgy Adidas knockoff trainers. Yeah, basically.
The Malcador.
Yeah. But yeah, he basically chokes him out with his mind.
Yeah, he crusades across the galaxy with his 18 legions, was 20, something happened to the other 2. Picked up his 18 sons, which got yeeted across the galaxy in multiple ways. No one really knows yet which exact way it was. And then after he'd done that, he sat down with a cup of tea and started working on his airfix and other things. So he appointed someone else, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a bit of a midlife crisis.
Yeah, he ordered a new Ferrari that was broken and he had to fix it. He knew he was going to get it fixed. It was a really good deal on the auction and all of his life savings on it, and he's still not fixed it yet. So he appointed someone to do his bidding, to do the wars for him, whilst he were busy working on the Ferrari.
Yeah, the first Primarch, Horus Lupercal. I mean, if we want to start...
Yeah, the first Primarch from the 17th Legion.
Yeah.
16th, sorry.
Yeah, the 17th one of the missing, aren't they? Is it 17th and the 9th?
No,
the 9th of the Blood Angels! It's the second!
Yeah, the second's missing.
Even I knew that. I don't know anything about Warhammer.
You don't?
I don't know.
This is all this show's highlighting. This whole show was just a ruse to get you to basically frame yourself for not knowing anything about Warhammer.
Literally, I thought the whole point of this podcast was because I don't know anything about the lore. No. You were like, you don't know about them. Oh, you're too gamey.
It's the 2nd and the 11th legions that are missing. And it is our right. It's the 16th. Horus is the 16th legion. The Lunar Wolves got the 17th.
Because a lot of them are the double the naughty numbers. I've noticed, the 14th legion, which are the Death Guard, and then 7 is Nurgle's holy number. Because the 7 for the Imperial Fists, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
you don't say at the end of that. The 7th legion, bro.
We haven't spoken about on the podcast yet, because this is only episode 2, that each Chaos God has a number that relates to them.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. So Nurgle is 7. Do we know why it's 7?
Because it's the best number. I don't think. Do they necessarily have reasons? I don't think they do. I think it's just kind of like that is their number.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Kind of like how 666 is like they're supposed to be the devil's number, but really it's got pop culture reasons why it is.
Yeah.
So to give a whole rundown about everything that's happened, are you ready?
Yes. It's your turn to summarize what happened.
So we've got the rise of mankind. This is what we're living through now. Apparently, the rise of mankind. It kind of feels like the flop of mankind at the moment, but we're steaming through that. That happens for about 15,000 years. So we get to 15,000 AD after Dominoes at this point, because who fucking knows in the future, right? What Domini means. Actually, they all do, but that's another point. So we've got 10,000 years then of the Dark Age technology. This is where the humans were being true Elon Musk heads. They were making pot noodles that could travel through time and all sorts. Like anything you can imagine, technology was giving us. We made robots that would do all our fighting for us. We made robots that will do all of our building for us. We made golden robots, nobody knows what they do. And then we started having X-Men appear. The mutants arrive. Everyone goes into lockdown, not real lockdown, but Then we got the Age of Strife, which is when we get the fall of the Eldar. You get Slanesh being born out of the big space vagina. All of humanity can't talk to each other anymore. Or none of them have got any signal. We end up with these little separate enclaves of humanity, and the Earth is knackered. Mars has turned into just the worst forum about let's just Stack Overflow times 1,000. If Stack Overflow was if Stack Overflow was like a porn site, that's what Mars has turned into. And then, the Emperor just goes, enough is enough. I am now Immortan Joe. Do not get addicted to water. Retakes Earth, makes 40 sons. They make 40 sons each, and then he does that until he has some legions. And then they go out and conquer the world. Well, actually, what his first step is, he was originally going to conquer the world, and then he realised that what he needed to do first was have a big family reunion after his jealous ex-wife cast them all out into the stars.
Right.
So that's where we've left it, isn't it? We've got jealous ex-wife things going on. The Emperor's like, no. He goes out, and then he comes across his first son, Horus Lupercal. And I think that's a really good place to pick up the Great Crusade and what will become the Horus Heresy.
So, guys, that is the prehistory and Great Crusade. That is how far we are into the history of Warhammer 40,000. We're going to have one more pilot episode, which is going to be discussing the Horus Heresy, which then kind of leads us off into the story as it is now.
Yeah, that's where it becomes like a labyrinth of topics, doesn't it?
Yeah. So that's when, after that, we're going to open up. It's going to be the official episode one. We're going to open that up to our premium community to vote on, or the small board gang community, what they want to hear from us. So we'll be putting a poll out with that episode. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it fun. Elliot, you were fantastic as always.
Thank you very much.
And Alex, you are also very fantastic.
Thank you.
Equally as fantastic. No, but both of you are more than fan.
Take two.
Both of you are more fantastic than I was. So that's
that's really true.
That is, yeah.
And I feel like I've learned a lot this episode because I don't know anything about the lore because I'm not a virgin like everyone listening at home. So thank you very much for listening, virgins. And hopefully you'll tune into the next one. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, have a good time.